Gene here. Welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, where every single week we answer the most common and uncommon questions about tapping and EFT so you can eliminate self-sabotage and take the actions that you want. As a way of helping you to do exactly that, in the month of November, I am doing a 30-day tapping challenge where every single day I'm going to post a new tap-along video for you that'll help you to do a little tapping to guide you along and to help you to take the actions that you want to be taking. On Monday, if you are on my mailing list, you received an email with a link that you could click inside of so that you could subscribe in YouTube or actually get daily reminders through your inbox. If you didn't get that email or you missed the email, all you need to do is go to tappingqa.com/30-day. That's tappingqa.com/30, and that's the number 30-day. The link is also in the show notes, so you can make sure you're getting those updates every single day over the course of November. And unlike a telesummit, the videos aren't going to disappear after a day, that they're going to continue to live on. So if you miss a day or two, you can still go back and use them. But I'd really encourage you to get on the list so that you're getting that just little reminder every single morning that will give you a few minutes to tap. This is Gene Montrastelli, and welcome to the Tapping Q&A podcast, recorded live to tape from Williamsburg in Brooklyn. This is episode 400, originally aired October 30th, 2019. Hi, everyone. I hope this finds you well wherever you are and whatever time of day you're getting a chance to listen to this. Thanks for spending some time with me today. Today, we are going to talk about and tap about the idea of loneliness. And loneliness is a really difficult thing. And I think it's more prevalent with adults than we'd like to think, because as an adult, it's really hard to make friends. When we're young, we're around so many people all of the time that are new to us when we're at school and new jobs and stuff like that. But as we get into adulthood, we have a tendency to fall into ruts just because of the way life is. That's not a mistake or a failing on our part. But because of that, it's harder to meet new people. So loneliness is a really, really pervasive thing. Before we talk about that on Tap on That, I'd just like to remind you we have a free 10-part guide to help you to eliminate self-sabotage. All you need to do is go to tappingqa.com, click on that big blue button, and you will start getting that free 10-part guide. We send one part every single day so you are not overwhelmed with resources. And if you happen to be listening to this on the website right now, in the upper right-hand corner, there's a big blue button. You can click on that button to receive the guide. For me, my two least favorite emotions are shame and loneliness. And loneliness is one of those things that we fear it so much. It feels almost like it is a disease that we are going to catch from other people. So much so that years and years ago, I lived in a big house with a number of roommates, like you do when you're oftentimes just out of college. And because we had this beautiful house, beautiful row house that had a living room and a dining room and a kitchen and a backyard, which is really atypical for where we lived in Washington, D.C., we'd have people over. And I am not one for super, super, super late nights. And that's great when you're going to visit other people because you can leave when you want. But when you're hosting the party, we really can't go to bed until everybody leaves. And so at a certain point in the evening, when I was ready for the party to be done and for the house to be cleared out, I learned a really simple trick. What I would do is I would just start moving from groups of people to groups of people who were having conversations. And in the middle of those conversations, I would bring up loneliness. And in the process of bringing up loneliness, people would start to flee. Because again, it was almost like this disease that they were going to catch. And it's something that is so antithetical to the human experience. And as I would move from conversation to conversation, the group would break up and people would leave, and the group would break up and the people would leave. And 10 minutes later, the house was empty. And it's really interesting as we kind of lean into and think about that fact that because of the nature of loneliness and our worry that we're going to catch it from someone else, it's difficult for us to talk about it. It's difficult for us to confront it because we have in the past, even if we don't fully remember this, have talked about it and have had the conversation, more than likely shut down. And so now all of a sudden it becomes not only something that is painful and something that is deep, it is also something that is really taboo. And something that I don't think it's talked about very much, though it's starting to be talked about a little bit more, is how difficult it is as an adult to make new friends. And part of that is because as adults, our lives are much fuller, so we have significantly less free time than we did when we were younger. And as we get into adulthood, the number of new people who come into our life is significantly limited. We're not in a school with lots of people our age. We're not going away to a university or a college where there's lots of new people, or we're getting a new job where everybody around us is new. That if you've been in your job for 5 or 6 years, more than likely there are very few new people who are around you. And so it becomes even more complicated once we find ourselves in this place of loneliness. 1, we don't feel like we can talk about it. 2, it is really gross to think about. And 3, it's sometimes a really hard thing for us to change because it's hard for us to connect with people in deep, profound ways. And I've even had people in my life who've stayed in relationships, and I've heard this from clients as well, who've stayed in friend relationships and work relationships and romantic relationships longer than they should have, just because they knew how hard it was to create those relationships, even as imperfect as they are today, to find new ones to fill that void. And so today, I just want to take a few minutes and tap on this idea of loneliness and being able to be okay in it and to be able to transition our way through it into something else. So to begin with, just tap on the side of your hand, take a nice big deep breath. Take another nice big deep breath. And just move from point to point, repeating after me. I hate the feeling of loneliness. It is so isolating. It feels like a giant black hole. That is sucking whatever energy that I have away from me. It's not just a thought. It's not just a feeling. It is something that consumes my entire body. Sometimes it even feels bigger than my body. Something that is surrounding me in all directions. It zaps my energy. It depletes my will. It makes me feel heavy. Making it so it's hard for me to take action. When I feel lonely, it's easy to judge myself. Making it easy to believe it is my fault. Making me believe there is something wrong with me. There's a part of me that believes that if I was better or if I were more, people would want to connect with me. People would want to be a part of my life. People would want to know who I am. Connection is a human need. We are made for connection. Being without connection can feel like being without oxygen. It can feel like we are drowning. Making it hard for us to take new action to make connection. I give myself permission to know I am not alone in my loneliness. I give myself permission to know that it is not my fault that I feel lonely. I give myself permission to recognize feeling lonely is not a judgment on who I am. It is not a judgment on my value as a person. Feeling lonely is a state. It is not who I am. I give myself permission to know that I don't have to stay stuck here. Connection is possible. There are people around me who want to connect in a human way. I am open to making those connections. I am open to existing in a way where others see me as I truly am. No matter how long I have been stuck here, I will not stay lonely forever. Even though there's a part of me that feels that that is the case. I am made for connection. There are others around me longing for the same type of connection. I give myself permission to see the possibility of connection around me. I give myself permission to put in the work and effort to find connection. Knowing it is possible for me to have exactly that. I give myself permission to trust myself. And to trust in the possibility of connection. Nice deep breath. One thing that's really important to recognize when we're tapping is that there are degrees of success that come with different types of tapping. That we don't go from having an intensity of 9 to an intensity of 0 in one round of tapping. And sometimes, after many rounds of tapping and many sessions, we won't completely clear something out. But for me, the goal is to constantly be working towards something better. And I would be willing to bet if you were feeling lonely and you did this tapping right now, you're probably not bouncing off the walls, ready to go singing and skipping down the street. I'm open to that possibility, but that typically isn't what happens. What happens with each round of tapping around loneliness, for me, is moving from a place of hopeless to hopeful. Because when we are in that deep loneliness, not only do we feel that pain, but it feels like there is no opportunity, which makes it hard for us to take action. Because if there is no hope, why do I even bother? And doing tapping like this, oftentimes for me, opens a window of hope. And I get an idea, I get an inspiration, I get a thought of someone I can reach out to, I get a thought of something I can do, a place that I could go, a connection that I could make, a connection that I could enrich. Knowing that I'm not going to turn the loneliness off with a switch, but when I am hopeful, it is easier to take action. And when I'm taking action, it is easier for me to have my action lead my experience more than my emotion leading my experience. And so I really encourage you, after tapping on something like this, to figure out where you are in that emotional scale. How do you feel better? Not what is the perfection, not what is the thing that you have fallen short of, but how can I feel a little better? What's the one action I can do today to connect? What's the place that I can find a little hope? And in doing so, it will get us out of that black hole, out of that downward spiral, which doesn't mean things are perfect, but does mean it is easier for us to take action. Because loneliness, for me, is actionless. It is sitting quietly, not moving forward, and I want to leave that place so that I can move forward and I can have more. I'd be really interested to hear your reflections on this. Lonely is a scary thing to talk about, and know that I would love to hear your thoughts. Feel free to leave a comment on the website down below the player. Feel free to drop me a note, Gene, Gene, at tappingqa.com. If you know someone in your life who could use a tapping like this, someone who maybe has expressed some concern or someone you've noticed, please pass it along. Don't spam your inbox. Don't send it to everybody in the world. But there might be a person or two out there who you know who could use this. Again, our goal this calendar year is to get 9 new people tapping every single day. And if we do that, we're going to add 3,000 new tappers in the world, which is going to make it easier for all of us, which is going to make connection more natural, which is going to make it healthier. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the podcast. In podcasting parlance, subscribe means free. Yes, there are places that provide podcasts and they provide audio that you have to pay for. Podcasts are always free by definition. Wherever you get your audio, you can get this for free. Google Podcasts, Apple Podcast, Pandora, Spotify, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, Himalaya, Luminary, Radio Public. You can even find us on that Alexa. If you are interested in figuring out how you can listen to the podcast on your home speaker like that, simply go to tappingqa.com/Alexa. I'm spelling it out because if I say it, I don't want to fire it off if you're listening to this currently in your living room. Questions and comments can always be directed to me, Gene, Gene, at tappingqa.com. Today's episode, like I mentioned at the top of the show, came from a recommendation from a reader and a listener just like you. If there's something you'd like us to cover in the future, please let me know. For the Tapping Q&A podcast, this is Gene Montrestelli. I hope you have a great day, and I will talk to you real soon. Bye-bye. The Tapping Q&A podcast is copyrighted Gene Montrestelli, Tapping Q&A 2016. All views expressed by guests are those of the guests and not necessarily of Gene Montrestelli or Tapping Q&A.